Good afternoon, dear friends. It's so nice to see so many of you here who have come to discuss farmers and how their activities are developing in this country and how you can start farming yourselves. Some other participants will join us. Dmitry Toropov, director of the Department of Agriculture, is coming. He is in a traffic jam, and director of the Department for Trade of the Government of Moscow, Alexei Nemeryuk. They are coming, and they will join us later. So we'll start now. I'm Konstantin Mezentsev. I'm chief editor of website agronews.ru and chief editor of Peasants News. I'm connected with agriculture through long work in agrarian media management, analytics, farm management. I was the first Soviet journalist and the first Soviet specialist who spent I worked in the United States as a hired worker. I milked cows in Holland and also grew wheat. As to farming, this is not just my hobby. It is my whole life. It is a very interesting, big, and beautiful area. I must apologize for one of the participants of our panel because Senator Plotnikov was supposed to speak to us. However, since our president, Mr. Putin, is convening our legislators to give him his regular message, he has to be there. However, I think since Vyacheslav Telegin is here, he is a farmer from Saratov region, chairman of Accor Union. He is a surprising man. I'm proud of our friendship. His favorite topic is cooperation. And he has the highest honor of France for implementing Russian-French project in this sphere. On my left is my colleague, a farmer, editor of Farmer.ru site, Mr. Volozhanin. He is a farmer from Sverdlovsk region, and his area is poultry. And he knows about the development of farming in Russia. He knows the real problems and how to look for a way out in a complicated situation. This is what our 90 minutes discussion is going to be devoted to. When farming started 25 years ago, we were pioneers in farming, and we believed that soon it will prevail in our agrarian economy. So what happened? Has Russian farming reached a high level of development? Thank you, Konstantin Alexeyevich. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the topics raised by Mr. Mezentsev are very important for this country. As you remember, private business was developing actively under Mr. Stolypin. Then, under Stalin, it was eliminated. And beginning with the 90s, farmers became more active, and now it is the basis for entrepreneurship in rural areas. For 25 years, on the 1st of February, we had our Jubilee Congress, 25 years, and we decided that farmers in Russia is a fact. There are 23,000 households, farms. Some of them are in the forms of legal entities, and 170,000 are individuals or private entrepreneurs. In 96, the civil code was amended, and there are many farmers in other legal forms like LLC or cooperatives and a number of others like partnerships. Using figures, farmers today produce every third ton of grain in Russia, every third ton of sunflower seed. Agricultural business, strange as it may seem, forms the basis for agricultural production, rural economy. I will give you some figures. Farmers today cultivate about 30 million hectares of land and they produce, all individuals, small enterprises, micro enterprises, they produce over half of the gross product. 58% of milk, 40% of meat, 47% of sunflower seed, 47.7% of grain. In the past 12 years, the average growth rate, annual growth rate, was 13.7%. For the whole economy, it was 3.4%. So the growth rate exceeds the average economic indicator. Farmers play an important social role in rural area. They help to preserve small villages and they revive new ones. Sometimes they got empty land without any engineering communications, and they contribute to the improvement of demographic situation and job creation. Normally, farmers have many children. Dmitry Ivanovich will tell us more about it. A number of programs are implemented where farmers create new jobs, are self-employed, and hire their neighbors. Of course, there are problems, and they are quite important. We always discuss them. We think that farming in Russia is underestimated. This is the Soviet tradition. We love big things like agro holdings, agro formations are in the first place. And we are always telling the heads in the industry and government officials that this problem exists, and it is this distribution of government support is unfair, though programs are developed. I think I would like to name 4 problems which farmers themselves regard as priorities. Number 1, improving the mechanism of government support of farming. Number two, land relations. Though farmers' plots are growing in size, there are a lot of significant problems. Sometimes a farmer rents land, takes loans collateralized by this land, and after 10 years expired, he does not have the first right. I think that it is important for farmers to have it as property, to have land as property, and still problems remain. The sale of agricultural products and development of agricultural cooperatives. This is an important problem that hinders farming, and the system of cooperation is one of the main tasks. Number four, a lot of administrative barriers that should be removed, that should be, whose functions should be given to non-commercial associations. We keep raising this question. The pressing is quite considerable from regulators in the past few years, and these requirements are not always reasonable. Sometimes they are even discriminatory, like raising pigs, because some of them are sick and they have diseases like distemper. Farming in Russia has great prospects. Based on the survey of the Ministry of Agriculture, 30% of the population say that they are prepared to take up private business if the land issue is resolved and the government will support and the government supports the beginning farmer. This has given us a general picture of how farming is developing in Russia. I will ask Alexey Evgenovich to decorate this general picture with his own impressions and his own experience of working as a farmer. Thank you. I'm Alexey Volozhanin. I've been a farmer since 1994. I live in Sverdlovsk Oblast, and I am the head of website farmer.ru. I'll tell you about it in greater detail. I'll also work with poultry. We produce 20,000 young birds a year and 5 tons or 10 tons of meat. We don't work with stores for a well-known reason. When a farmer has to lend to retail, this is awful. I'm only prepared to take money first to increase the output in our small areas during a season without investing any money. Well, by 2 or several times, or sometimes 5 times, well, we can easily do it. The only problem is to sell at a good margin. If we work 5 times harder and get 3 rubles more, this makes no sense. I travel a lot about the country, Russia, Belarus. In our YouTube channel, there are 17 million viewers, and you can see it yourselves. Now I'm coming back to what I'm doing. I have my own turkeys, pheasants. I buy poultry and eggs and sell at the age of 1 day. If I haven't sold poultry in spring, I keep it, and then we sell poultry by the new year. So the amount of poultry is different, varies from year to year. When we had birds flu in that season, if you remember, nobody was buying either meat or poultry. I used 20 tons of fodder a month, and I incurred very big losses. I get help from the government. It is not too big, 200 or 300,000 rubles a year to cover my expense, the money I spent on food, on grain for the poultry. This very briefly, that's it. If necessary, could you increase your production? Yes, there's no problem. There is just one problem, the ultimate price of our product. With a reasonable price, I can increase my production easily. In Moscow, imported meat products prevail. What about Ekaterinburg? Ekaterinburg, there is no difference between Moscow and Ekaterinburg, and we have a lot of important production products too. I can add that sales of small farmers or individual farmers bypasses all the stores. It is a big amount of food. Retail should decide how to attract so that people could buy our products. We're not going to take their conditions. People start making inquiries for meat to be used in the new year as early as in August. All these metaphors, ecological food, and we've been doing that from 1998, and we deliver this food to people's homes or offices. Yes, this is a modern method. In Germany, I have seen that farmers produce products and deliver them to their customers. I would like to add that farms, and I would like to mention that Mr. Toropov has joined us, a very reputable specialist in farming and farm management in Russia. Now we are going to discuss something else. For some reason, when farming is discussed, our food production becomes a priority. However, there is another function in agriculture, namely, people live there, they make products, occupy this territory, and if there are no people, this territory is empty, there is no development, and it is an attractive piece for someone to start cultivating it. Leonid Ivanovich is director of the Department of Agricultural Development and Social Policy, and he's also in charge of consistent development of territories. Please tell us how this function of farmers should be taken into account in our Russian practice. And is it taken into account?
Thank you, Konstantin, for this important question. First of all, I'd love to welcome everyone on behalf of the Minister for Agriculture, Nikolai Fedorov, all the participants, all those people that came to this forum, to this Congress, and I'll try to answer this question. And if I have time, I can give you an outline of the policies for supporting farming enterprises and sustainable development of rural areas. Yes, that's the vision of the Ministry for Agriculture of the Russian Federation. So I'll start with the answer. Whether agricultural development match the development of farming enterprises. Yes, I can say that there's close relationship between these. We have completed one program, federal program here in Russia, which aimed at the social development of villages, and it ran from 2003 until 2013. We built more than 18 million square meters of accommodation, and half of this area is given to young specialists. This accommodation, this housing has all the required utilities, gas, water, and so all the engineering structures are available, as well as schools and kindergartens. And in parallel with this, we started developing small enterprises. And if we speak about entrepreneurship, it began with the national project for developing agro-industrial complexes. So this was a national project that gradually was transformed into the state program for development of market and agriculture. And entrepreneurship is a part of it. So, beginning with this year, we have a new program for sustainable development of rural areas. And it started this year, and it's going to finish in 2020. So it means that it covers a long term. And this program includes different activities that we already started before for social development of villages before the year of 2013. And apart from this, new activities have been included into this, and in particular some grant support for different rural initiatives. And Europe has used these practices very often, for example, in Scandinavian countries and in Germany. Usually they focus on the development of rural communities, and this is something we would like to use. And this has been the first year when we included these activities into our program. So we provide support for rural communities through grants. And these grants can be used for improving the area, building some cultural facilities, some monuments, some utilities, pavement, landscape beautification, and improving some parks or neighborhoods. So this is a set of new events and activities. So there's difference between federal target program and national or state program for the development of agriculture. It lasted between 2006 and 2013, and now we have started a new program, and it's been running for the second year, and it includes the federal target program for sustainable development of rural areas. This state program has a separate section for supporting and developing entrepreneurship. I heard Vyacheslav, and I know what he meant. We often meet, and we are always in contact. We prepare different activities together. We have worked together. But of course, sometimes we do not agree on certain things. But we try to solve those disagreements, and we try to find a consensus. So speaking about small enterprises, Vyacheslav focused on farmers, but small entrepreneurship in agriculture is not only presented by farmers. Probably it's only in Belarus, Ukraine, and some other CIS countries, former Soviet republics, that have which are just personal little farms that people have. And basically, it means that people do some gardening, grow plants, vegetables, or breed animals for themselves, for their families. And this is the potential for the development of small farming enterprises. And we provide federal support for those personal farms. And it's about and the support is given to those that sell for 300,000 rubles. So they get subsidies in order to repay the interest rate. Apart from personal farms, small enterprises include different forms of ownership, for example, limited liability companies and other forms of ownership. And their turnover should not increase 60 million per year. So, according to our legislation, this can be considered small enterprise. And like Vyacheslav mentioned, it's true that half of products in Russia are produced by entrepreneurs. Sometimes I hear the discussions that small farmers, farm enterprises do not enjoy benefits in terms of support. But I have to say that the state provides support, and we do not mean to do any harm to anyone. And the government of the Russian Federation support all kinds of farms, especially if we speak about agriculture. So if we speak about state support and focus on just farmers, and I have to say that the numbers change every year. We used to have 360,000 farmers, but now the statistics says that we have 260,000 farmers, according to official statistic data. But I guess this has been the result of some taxation initiatives, especially those related to social taxes. But this has changed this year. So if we focus on the relationship between the production and support, I can say that farmers produce 10 to 12% of all the products, and also the support is in the same amount, 10 to 12%. But we don't mention here the support at the regional level. and also the federal target programs support is not included. So there's no discrimination whatsoever. The farmers have all the rights to participate in different activities. If they want to use the subsidies for housing, they can do it. And we provide all the utility lines, providing them with water and gas. And we build engineering structures, and we build roads in those areas where farmers live. And the farmers can use all kinds of social facilities that are available in rural areas. Unlike all other former Soviet republics, because I don't see similar examples in other countries, and I mean both the European Union and other countries, we have had two programs that stimulate the development of small farm enterprises. And so the first program is called the Beginner Farmer, and it means that we provide grants, 1,750,000 rubles, and this money is given for beginner farmers so that they could start up their business. So out of this 1,750,000, 250 is given for just to be used as farmers consider necessary. Then the second program has grants that can go up to 21 million rubles, and we provide for cattle breeding this grant. So mainly it's for dairy products and for cattle that have 100 animals at least. So there are no limitations here. We provide these grants both for different kinds of livestock. And it includes poultry, fish, and wild animals as well. There are no limitations. Well, I can finish here if you're bored with my talk. Well, the question is not exactly this. It's not that we believe that farmers feel some restrictions. It's just we meant to say that there's very weak support for farming and agriculture in this country. And we have another speaker who has joined us. Alexey Nemeryuk has just arrived, who is the director of the Department for Trade and Services, and he works at the Moscow city government. So let me ask you this question. So the situation has been changing, and Moscow is a megalopolis, and there's a lot of food which is imported to Moscow. And now, in the light of the recent events, there are many questions related to imported foods, and these food streams can be reduced to zero in the future. So does the Moscow city government see it as a threat? And is there a place for small and medium-sized farming enterprises? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this session. It's a very appropriate question because the situation in the world policies and agriculture is not that easy. Moscow consumes 12 million tons of food, and 4.5 million tons is related to fresh fruit, berries. So we do make analysis of the current channels of supply. Moscow has become an agricultural region, and we have a Russian Agricultural Academy that oversees this work. So they work not only in the Moscow region, but also in many other regions. This means that we have large enterprises that have their own history, and they have nothing to do with small farms. And we understand that the small and medium farm enterprises play a very small role in this process, but still we welcome their contribution. And of course, it means that we get their products not only from the Moscow region, but also from other neighboring regions, because we developed relations with those areas. We have different forms of support, and the analysis that has to be conducted, and actually we have already carried out such analysis. We understood that we have quite a lot of supplies from abroad, especially if we speak about meat supplies. About 60% it's beef, 30% fish, then quite significant amount of berries and fruit, and of course we have some supplies from BRICS countries and NATO countries. So by making this analysis, we understand certain trends, and of course we could turn to other suppliers. For example, the suppliers from the Asia, from the Eastern Europe. We don't think there's a very high risk related to supplies, but it's very important to discuss these issues here. Without the appropriate development of agriculture, and I don't only speak about Moscow and the Moscow region. So we do support the existing enterprises, and Moscow has provided the necessary support. And we have 5 types of subsidies given for different purposes. About 120 million rubles is allocated every year. Sometimes this money is not spent entirely. So as a consumer, as the largest consumer in this country, we give jobs for farmers and beginner farmers. In particular, we have market fairs, and we have regional fairs. When we invite our neighboring regions, our colleagues from Kazakhstan and Belarus, weekend fairs and other specialized activities that we organize in order to support cooperation in agriculture. And I agree with your point. Of course, it's important to provide the support for the regions, and in particular small and medium-sized farms. When we started this conversation during historical materialism era, we spoke about family enterprises, and the main argument of our opponents was this: in the West, farmers work on their own. it's a solitary process, whereas when we united our efforts in a collective farm, we worked together. And it was very difficult to explain that a farmer cannot survive on his own, because he will never be able to reach Alexei, and he won't find a place on the market. But if there are some structures established that can change the food pattern, for example, it can be fresh products or meat, then of course the situation will be different. It means that that we are open, and you're welcome to come here and sell your things. So when we established our first farmers' organization, there were two concepts united. It was the Association for Peasants or Farmers Enterprises and Agricultural Cooperatives of Russia. And I mentioned that Vyacheslav was awarded with the award from the Legion of Honor. It's French Legion of Honor, because he participated actively in French project.
How important is cooperation today? Cooperation among farmers. How can farmers and Russia benefit from it? Thank you for a good question. The volumes of production I discussed in the first presentation are quite big. Alexey Alexeyevich was late, and I want to repeat the small business in Russia is a key aspect, and they produce most of the products. Problem number one that farmers are discussing is sales of products. It hinders the development of farming. Konstantin Alexeyevich emphasized that from the very first day, we realized that without cooperative system on sales of agricultural products, it would be difficult for a peasant or farmer to win in the competition and increase profits. We are talking to our foreign colleagues, and we have 20 years experience in the development of cooperation. And we understand that without such systems, farmers will have difficulties in competing, especially since we opened our borders, and there's a significant share of imports in the Russian market. Beginning with 1996, we started opening our cooperative. The first one was a credit cooperative. Now the priority is sales through the cooperative system. And this is problem number one for farmers. As of the 1st of January 2014, Russia has about 7,000 cooperatives, which consists of agricultural producers. Different types of cooperatives. They have elements of processing, sales. Cooperation is developing, and it started developing actively beginning with 2006, when the national project became a priority, and the government supported it. Then the number of such cooperatives grew manifold. Regional structures appeared in Yakutia, Astrakhan, Tatarstan, Chuvasha, Saratov Oblast, Tyumen Oblast. Generally, the system is still being formed. It is still fragmentary. It doesn't have an equal development in different territories. 10 regions are among obvious leaders, and some of them have just started cooperating. However, there is positive foreign experience and Russian experience, and and we believe that the development will go on in this area. We had our first Congress of Cooperative Unions on the initiative of the minister in Petersburg, where the first concept of cooperation development was developed and a decision was made, and the ministry was instructed to develop a goal-oriented program and the impulse of the development of cooperation will acquire new potentialities. The volumes of products through cooperatives today are quite small, and small business already produces large volumes. 90% of potatoes and vegetables are produced by small business. It is an absolute figure. However, it is difficult for each one separately to get to a Moscow market. Well, farmer himself can only sell 300 or 500 kilos vegetables. Even if he cultivates a small plot, it will result in hundreds of tons of products, and he'll never be able to sell it himself. Cooperation allows, based on our evaluation, to achieve economy of 15 to 20%, and you will win the same in price by bringing your assets together in selling your products. I'm a member of 2 cooperatives, and I know that at the first stage, the result from cooperation we have our own reserves, and without cooperation we would be broke already. So we are trying to support this idea now, and we know that without deep cooperating, without creating system of sales on cooperative basis, our life will be very difficult, both in the domestic and foreign market. It is closely connected with early ideas, and there is one simple thought. Today, peasants are not enough informed about the existing programs, opportunities, contacts. They are not organized properly. And there is another aspect of this process. There is not enough feedback between those who produces potatoes in the village and those who make decisions in Moscow about buying these potatoes, and buy these potatoes from Afghanistan, or because you can buy something different from Afghanistan. Instead of visiting Tula region, Ryazan region, and finding out what they grow. I'm saying that we do not have a streamlined system of agricultural information. This is a big problem, and I'm convinced that information means specific money. And speaking of our agrarian industry. This is its back intangible asset. I'm not only a farmer, I'm also head farmer.ru. It's a big website in Russian-speaking internet. We have 50,000 visitors every day. They also conduct their business. They sell and buy potatoes and watermelons. For farmers and for individual farms, we have a lot of free services, including websites for individual units and for sales. Agri-News publishes a newspaper, Peasant News. You have some other newspapers in your holding too. For modern people, you have internet resources, which is not a universal mechanism, though it is one of the mechanisms for selling our products, and you need to know how to use it. If you simply place an advertisement in Farmer or Avito websites, and if you wait for a result, well, this is ridiculous. You won't have any result. You should work with these advertisements. You should place photos, videos. And these photos should not just be photos from internet. These photographs should preferably be yours. The culture of communication or selling through internet, sometimes the price is indicated, contract-based price. Well, it is not clear. You should indicate the price exactly, how much you want the buyer to pay for so many tons of your product. In one advertisement, everything was mixed: potatoes, meat, and a used tractor. An awful advertisement. And there are many of such advertisements, and in our website too. We don't delete them, but we try to explain to people how to use them correctly. We see a lot of farms. Among them could be small farms or big farms. We have seen a mustard farm, a big mustard farm, and we have different farmers. Try to establish contacts with them, try to find information. It could be found in the website of the Ministry of Agriculture. They publish all the materials. And I would like to ask Dmitry, is the problem of housing construction in of the farmers' lands, will it be solved somehow? I think it's one of the key issues that prevents people from building houses on farmers' land. They are not allowed to build houses on farmers' land. You can always see what is being built: cottages for leisure or a farmer's house. What can you tell us? Yes, this question is being solved. We have already given our positive opinion about this project. And hopefully it will be adopted before the summer vacation. The draft law was approved by the government last year, and then it stayed in the State Duma for some time. And certain amendments have been made. Certain limitations have been introduced. I'm not going to discuss the details now. Until the draft law is adopted, discussions will go on. For how many years did it take to solve this problem? It is the third year already. At a core congress in Tambov, instruction was given by President Putin, and the issues were to the problem. He also asked them to review the opinions of the regions and take into account the requirements of the construction code. The concern was that instead of farmers' houses, mansions will be built and lands will be removed from farming. Now the State Duma is going to discuss this draft law again. Now the discussion will begin. Just a moment. Unfortunately, Mr. Nemeryuk will have to leave soon, so I will ask you, please ask questions to Mr. Nemeryuk first. Unfortunately, there's no sound in the microphone. I didn't expect to see you here. I've been writing letters to you for 2 years. You know that I live in Moscow, and I see great perspectives of working in the land and how it could be sold, products could be sold in Moscow. Will you ever solve my problem? What is your problem? My problem is connected with movable units to sell products. Why do you think that you are so unique and can sell your products in Moscow from movable units? She was selling from food in pavilions. Contracts expired. Moscow organized auctions. Other entrepreneurs and farmers came, but she wants to have a personal privilege at the government price to allow her to sell her product. I have a lot of such producers. I don't mean that you are developing agriculture in a different region. We are happy to see all the farmers, but we don't make any preferences. Federal Anti-Monopoly Service takes care of that. Movable units currently in Moscow are not envisaged. We are prepared to discuss this with federal networks, like in Poland, who keep at least 5% of products, regional products, on their shelves, or at the fairs during the weekend. You can sell it during the weekend.
Or would you like to initiate some activities? If you want to develop some farmers' community, that's okay. If you want to participate in the regional fair in some region, you're welcome. If the governor thinks that there is a farmers' community that want to come here, yes, no problem. We'll give you a place in Moscow and you can come and sell your products. But we're not going to give you preferences so that you could put your car or put your little stall in order to sell your things. No, this will never happen. Dear Alexei, when we were writing to you. I'm a member of expert community for innovation development, innovative development of regions. We also work on the development of the draft law. So we try to include and introduce this form, and we wanted 10% in all trade chains that should be given for small farmers' products, because that's a very important preference that can support local producers. But our suggestion didn't go anywhere. We had, they asked us to wait and just explore the legislation. There were lots of amendments. It took a long time to put this law in force. But maybe you think that it's high time that we initiated this amendment to the law, especially if we consider the current situation. It's important to provide import substitution. This will help our producers enter federal chains. Because it's not easy to put your product on the shelves in federal chain shops. We have federal legislative initiative authority. Yes, it's true. We were discussing this question, and we were thinking of different ways to support different local producers, both here in Moscow and outside of Moscow. So this would be a great step. And it's very important to make these little steps, if we could do it, because such farmers cannot get there. Your name is Nadezhda, right? I just want to call you, to address you by your name. I understand your hopes, but again, you can't put your Gazelle car on the main street, which is Tverskaya Street. You can't get these preferences. But I mean a stall, even a stall. The reform has finished, and now we're having a different reform. And as to you, we are ready to support your project. In the State Duma had a program for the development of agriculture from 1995 to 2008. So there were some laws adopted, and they were related to the owners, and not, I don't mean cooperatives, I mean the collective farms of the property owners. So if we speak about collective farm, you probably remember that time, that Soviet time. And so just to make this different from those collective farms, that's why this law was introduced, and the wording was different. But what's the question? And who are you going to ask your question to? Well, I don't know who knows better the federal laws. Then there were some hearings in the State Duma. 70% of agricultural products are imported. So it means that we got addicted to this. All the lands that were owned by collective farms, they were bought by individuals, and there are hundreds of million hectares that are not used. But I'm sure that we don't have hundreds of million hectares in Russia. Well, maybe tens only, but not hundreds. Then the next, but what's the question? Can you ask your question? As regards the sale, I live not far from the center, and we try to bring local residents, but we have only people from Azerbaijan and other former Soviet republics. So can you change the legislation so that the local producers could enter the market? And maybe we should write a letter. Maybe we should demand it out loud and come up with some activities. Well, of course, it's important to take some steps in order to attract local producers. And of course, we should do our best to use our local products rather than imported products. I'd love to make a comment on behalf of the Ministry for Agriculture and the government of the Russian Federation. Maybe you just don't know some things. You're not aware of the current initiatives. We have a different legislation. Those things that were considered earlier related to shares and other things, it's now all gone. And it's true that we don't have hundreds of million hectares. And speaking about food and food products, the government has adopted the doctrine for food safety, and we stick to it. And then speaking about discrimination, we don't have any discrimination. Any person can sell their products. I'm a member of a SIVA expert group from the Ivanovo region. You said that you have those programs, but are they implemented directly or through the department, the regional department for agriculture? All the programs that I mentioned, the program for sustainable development, it's supported by the federal budget. And so we have all these programs are implemented by municipal authorities. And as to small enterprises, the farmers are selected based on their business plans in constituent entities and by municipal authorities. And we recommend that there's a competition committee should have people that are at least by 50% are just people working employed in different areas, but not civil servants. So this is a local selection process. Does it mean that the region can send you an application? There is a procedure which is explained in detail on our website. So if you want to work in agriculture, you give an application to the municipal authority, and then those applications are sent to the are considered at the constituent entities level, and later on they get the funding. You spoke about several programs for supporting farmers, and you were speaking about cooperatives. But are there any programs that support cooperatives in particular? Vyacheslav already mentioned that the state program is going to actually has a section on small entrepreneurship, and now there's going to be a separate section dedicated to different kinds of cooperation forms. Can I add something? The program has become effective since 2014, so it now goes through the final approval stages, and we hope that it will be implemented beginning with this year. That's true, and the delay with this cooperation section is not only because the Ministry for Agriculture is reviewing their state programs. We have 51 state programs to make sure it is in line with the address, with the presidential address to the Federal Assembly. And so we have reviewed those programs and now are making adjustments. But I can say that all these programs have been approved in the most parts. My name's Pavel Kabin. I'm an entrepreneur and I don't work in agriculture. I came here just to see if it's possible to start a business in agriculture. What I hear is that the state should support the farmers and lots of other things. So can you please tell me if a farmer's enterprise can be cost-effective? What's the average income? And I have heard a lot about the problem related to sales. So what kind of problem do you have related to federal chains? And also, how much money can an entrepreneur spend on selling their products? Thank you. If you expect some figures, I won't be able to give you those figures because I don't know much statistics. As to the fact whether the farmer is willing and ready to pay money for sales, no. And I think that the farmers should produce and not pay money. Just like Alexei Volozhanin being a farmer, I think that it's not the farmer's business to sell products. The most important thing for the farmer is to produce goods, is to provide products. For example, being a farmer, I don't want to stand there at the market trying to sell my products, and I don't want to spend my time, and I want to make this work as smooth as possible. I want somebody else to do this. So I don't have much time here because the session is coming to an end, but if you want to know details, you can stay and I can give you more details during the break. It's true what Alexei says as a farmer, even though it's a commercial secret. If we look at the results of the last year, the cost effectiveness of small farm enterprises is about 2 to 3% without federal regional support, and with federal or regional support, it reaches 15% or even 18%. But I have to say that business in different civilized countries like European Union or America give much more support, like 3 times. Their support is 3 times as big. And it's normal for those countries to have 20% of profitability. My name is Maria Lidovskaya. I'm from Krasnoyarsk. For example, I have a touristic club, and we want to develop our local tourism. And I have a partner who has some poultry farm, and we try to organize a cooperative. So we contacted the local authorities, and they said that you don't have an appropriate education, so that's why we cannot provide you any support. Now I hear that you can give 1,500,000. Well, what can we do? Well, you should read the terms and conditions to participate in those federal programs. Of course, this support cannot be given to anyone. there are certain terms and conditions, and it's given to entrepreneurs that have agricultural education, or those people that have worked for 3 years at least in agriculture, or those that have their personal farms. But this person was a lawyer, then she had a car accident, now she has only one arm, and so it means that she has now to go enter the university, agricultural university, and only that get the support. Well, if she has been working on the farm for 3 years, if they can call their farm a business, then she can be a candidate for this. But she has been working there more than 3 years. You should show it. You should provide a business plan. Does she work in a village or in a city? It's a very small provincial town, but yes, she has been producing eggs and meat of quails, and it's half of the city that uses her product. You should provide the evidence. And anyway, you can send us a letter and we will reply. I'm from Tatarstan. I have a family some. We had an association of farmers, about 55 farmers. And now in Tatarstan there are more than 1,000 farmers. But now there are more and more farmers that use information technologies and the most modern technologies, but it's very difficult situation related to infrastructure. It's very difficult to get loans from the banks. And I know that I heard about the vacations, like tax breaks for 3 years, so that we could repay those loans later. Are there any programs that can support new farmers that start their businesses in a completely new area? We don't distinguish between old farmers and new farmers. Innovative approaches to the development of agriculture are welcome. And again, you can submit your business plan and participate in the competition. So let it be the last question. My question is for Dmitry. I'm Director General of Rosagrochem company. My name is Alexander Lobko. Agricultural Ministry is doing a good work. And we know that the producers of different plant protection invest a lot of money in developing their business. There's a very high level of competition, and now all farmers can get pesticides. So maybe you don't know this, and recently one of the components of this production process involves the registration of the means used for plant protection. And some German companies use GLP system of registration. It's good, but all the research provided for that would be 10 times more expensive. And if the Ministry of Agriculture doesn't understand this problem, then 5 years later, only multinational companies will remain on the market. I don't know if it's really good for farmers, but I think it looks like a diversion for this country. So maybe you could make a note of this and get a detailed and have a detailed investigation. It's a very interesting question, but we are quite conservative. All the agricultural producers are conservative. So this being conservative it means that you are going to measure many times before you cut a piece. So I have a colleague who is responsible for plant production, and I know that they are studying this issue. So we are not going we are also going to get involved in the examination of this issue. So we hope to make it as smooth as possible.
Спасибо. Дорогие друзья,
Dear friends, an hour and a half has passed very quickly, and I'm very happy about the quality of the questions and the presentations. I would like to thank the speakers for their competence and willingness to share their ideas. Thank you. Goodbye.